First of all, America's finally seeing Europe gas prices, so that's really interesting. So that's one. Number two, these prices at the pump are not reflective of the actual reality, as Joseph Robinette Brandon showed, as he perfectly pointed out in a meme yesterday. These prices are not even reflective of the actual price of production. They're just higher because they can get away with higher. They haven't normalized yet, surprisingly. A lot of it is based on futures regardless. Here it is. Oil prices are decreasing. Gas prices should too. Last time oil was $96 a barrel. Gas was $3.62 a gallon. Now it's $4.31, Jack. Oil and gas companies should have had their profits at the expense of hardworking Americans, Jack. So that's what he said. That I love kids sitting on my lap, and I hate when oil and gas companies turn around and do this kind of thing. Does he not realize he's the president? I think so. It's not true anymore, though. Crude oil price went back up to $104. Ultimately, this is a consequence of no matter what the crude oil prices are, even if it goes up to $100, the reason why gas prices are the way they are is because companies with soaring profits, like the oil and gas giants, do not want to take a haircut off of their profit margin. That's it. That reality has not changed, regardless of how much the oil and gas prices, or regardless of how much a barrel of crude oil changes in pricing. That's the reality. They will do this if they can get away with it, and they can certainly get away with it right now. Robert Wright talked about this. Let's hear it.
Everybody's talking about it, but ignoring one of its biggest causes: corporate concentration.
Major drag
now, prices are undeniably rising. In response, the Fed is about to slow the economy, even though we're still at least 4 million jobs.
Sold my car early this year, feeling like Pelosi's husband with these insider plays. Baby, I feel the same. Getting the EV, dude, call me Nancy Pelosi's husband, because I got an electric vehicle right before they fucking exploded. I got a Porsche EV right before a shipment of Porsche EVs blew the fuck up. Porsche decided they're no longer producing Taycans for the near future, and gas prices blew the fuck up. Like, straight up, dude. Yo, I got the insider track, dude. The SEC needs to come up my asshole, Brett. I'm making these decisions, dude. I'm making these decisions. Anyway, let's continue.
Short of where we were before the pandemic. And millions of American workers won't get the raises they deserve. Republicans haven't wasted any time hammering Biden and Democratic lawmakers about inflation.
Skyrocketing inflation.
But don't fall for their fear-mongering. Everybody's ignoring the deeper structural reason for price increases: the concentration of the American economy into the hands of a very few corporate giants with the power to raise prices. If the market were actually competitive, corporations would keep their prices as low as possible as they competed for customers. Even if some of their costs increased, they would do everything they could to avoid passing those costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices, for fear of losing business to competitors. But that's the opposite of what we're seeing. Corporations are raising prices even as they rake in record profits.
Hey, hi, howdy. How are you?
Corporate profit margins hit record highs last year.
Yes, he is.
You see, these corporations have so much market power, they can raise prices with impunity. So the underlying problem isn't inflation per se, it's lack of competition. Corporations are using the excuse of inflation to raise prices and make fatter profits. Take the energy sector. Only a few entities have access to the land and...
It's so strange that, like, it's so strange that people just don't think ever about, like, cutting the profit margin, like, a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild. I saw a post about how the invisible ways of, like, our food producers will readjust for costs. Like, they'll put 2 less chips in a Dorito bag. You know what I mean? And that, for the same price, maintains the exact same price point while also simultaneously gives you less chips, or 5 Doritos chips, right? And I was thinking, like, okay, it's not just 5 less Doritos chips though, dog. Like, your profits are still the same. Like, you're literally adjusting your production specifically to maintain the same level of profit.
Pipelines that control the oil and gas powering most of the world. They took a hit during the pandemic as most people stayed home. But they are more than making up for it now, limiting supply and ratcheting up prices.
Chevron, Exxon have doubled their
Sam,
profits.
No matter what time I
This
write
isn't
your
about
stream, you
inflation.
always seem
This
to
is
be
about-
talking over
Remember,
your head.
the American government literally fucking allows the fossil fuel industry to be a profitable industry, okay? Across the board with our subsidies. That's number one. Then also on the tail end, we offered them bailouts and we offered them fat fucking emergency funding packages throughout this crisis because they weren't selling enough. We also beefed up our reserves in the beginning of COVID because we knew that they needed to sell more barrels of oil. Otherwise, it was like they're just literally fucking, they're gonna die. There's nowhere else to sell. And even on top of all of that, these fucking phonies, these fake friends, these fucking pieces of shit still are now trying to make up for lost profits in that interim period where the American taxpayer kept them afloat, turn around and fuck the taxpayer once more. Yeah, I got the wand out, baby. Let's go. I got the fucking wand out. I'm ready. Woo! Wingardium Leviosa up in this bitch, dude. You don't understand. I will fucking expecto patronum a motherfucker real quick. Straight up. Yeah, I always keep that motherfucking thing on me, okay? Always. You know I keep the thing on me. Expect petroleum.
Price gouging.
Or look at consumer goods. In April 2021, Procter & Gamble raised prices on staples like diapers and toilet paper, citing increased costs in raw materials and transportation. But P&G has been making huge profits. After some of its price increases went into effect, it reported an almost 25% profit margin. Looking to buy your diapers?
Yo, look at that. Exactly. It can't be 10%, okay? They can't have year over year 10% profit margin. It just can't. They can't do that. That would be communism, okay? That would not be capitalism. That'd be communism, brothers. So we can't do that.
Elsewhere, well, good luck. The market is dominated by P&G and Kimberly-Clark, which not entirely coincidentally raised.
By the way, for people saying, think of the shareholders, I would literally fucking Wingardium Leviosa those shareholders, okay? I am fucking strapped up, dude. I go, hey, abracadabra, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Better watch out, shareholders. I'm strapped up with this wand, okay? Yeah, I would levitate them.
Raised its prices at the same time. Another example. In April 2021, PepsiCo raised prices, blaming higher costs for ingredients, freight, and labor. It then recorded $3 billion in operating profits through September. How did it get away with this without losing customers? Pepsi has only one major competitor, Coca-Cola, which promptly raised its own.
I mean, technically, yes, we are all shareholders. Like most people in this chat that have a 401k, or all people in this chat that have a 401k is technically a shareholder. But you know what I mean, okay? That is also one of the other awful parts of this entire fucking process. This awful, awful way that this economy has worked. This awful way that we have reorganized the entire fucking economy to basically fucking socialize all the losses and maintain this privatized wealth accumulation for all of the profits by functionally removing the government's responsibility and duty to ensure that there's a safety net once you are no longer a productive worker, by turning the social security safety net into a 401k, turning pension plans into a 401k, making everybody feel like they have a say in what happens, or making everybody's interest, financial interest in their future security tied to the fucking marketplace, the stock market. Now, of course, the irony of that is that, 90% of the stock market is still owned by the top 10% of wealth. A lot of you are still in here in the top 10% of wealth, myself included, obviously. But our share of that, even in the top 10% of wealth, our share of the fucking stock market's gains is minuscule in comparison to the real big boys.
Own prices. Coca-Cola recorded $10 billion in revenues in the third quarter of 2021, up 16% from the previous year.
But wouldn't the company get sued or the CEO get fired for breach of fiduciary responsibility? The system doesn't allow it. I mean, that's a little bit fucking bullshit. The fiduciary responsibility itself is bullshit. But yes, there is a legislative path out of this to, first and foremost, change the fiduciary responsibility. You mean the capital owners are throwing their workers under the bus so they can fulfill unlimited growth? Wowie woo wow? Yes. It's not fiduciary. It's that the board will yeet them out. Fiduciary only applies to financial institutions. Yeah, the board will yeet them out though.
Food prices are soaring, but half of that is from meat, which costs 15% more than last year. There are only 4 major meat processing companies in America.
They work
which are
off
all
with that.
raising
They
their
work
prices
off
and
the same.
enjoying
They work off the same attitude, though. The rate of profit is declining. This is the expected outcome. Yes, it will continue. There was a person who talked about the rate of profit and its tendency to decline. I don't remember what his name was. He's just some guy that, but he is correct. That guy was correct. And it was, I think, like 200 years ago or some shit, but they were very correct when they were talking about that. And people have been correct. Yeah, Markiplier, I think his name was. Anyway, regardless, doesn't matter. Old dude, big beard, who cares, right? The more that happens, the more violent and ruthless and vicious our capital owners have to get. You need to keep squeezing that same rock for more profits, okay? If you look at like even the American history, for example, you look at the gold rush. We had seemingly unlimited lands to explore. Obviously, those lands were not inhabited by anyone or anything like that. Just kidding. Of course it was. So we did genocide so that we could literally take over all of that land and exploit the natural resources on that land. That's the never-ending expansive conquest towards the West that allowed America to become such a wealthy nation and become what it was, setting up America for being the United States of America for being like, the global superpower it was. After that, once we reached California, we're like, all right, there's water here. We're fucked. We need some other shit. Part of what capitalist nations and capital owners that dictate what bourgeois governments do needed to do was find new and better ventures to continue extracting natural resources. The only way to maintain that these natural resources that we need from the ground that don't grow in the United States of America was by making sure that those countries were still unable to develop on their own, by keeping them down through a sequence of colonialism, imperialism, neo-imperialism, and debtor capitalism, which we engage in to this day. Today's New York Times Daily was actually incredible. If you guys want to watch that, that is like a perfect example of what kind of attitudes the American media has towards American imperialism and what kind of attitudes that Americans in general should have towards extracting cobalt from the Congo region, like supposedly at the behest of the Congo government, even though it's not the nation, and how China is, taking advantage of America's lack of involvement in the Congo and has overtaken nearly the entirety of the production of cobalt, which is a profoundly important resource for electric batteries.
Record profits. Get the picture? The underlying problem is not inflation, it's corporate power. Since the 1980s, when the U.S. government all but abandoned antitrust enforcement, all American industries have become more concentrated. Most are now
That's crazy. How'd that happen, bro? I don't understand.
dominated by a handful of corporations that coordinate prices and production. This is true of banks, broadband, pharmaceutical companies, airlines, meat packers, and yes, soda. Corporations in all these industries and more could easily absorb higher costs, including long overdue wage increases, without passing them on to consumers in the form of higher prices, but they aren't. Instead, they're using their massive profits to line the pockets of major investors and executives, while both consumers and workers get shafted. How can this structural problem be fixed? Fighting corporate concentration with more aggressive antitrust enforcement. Biden has asked the Federal Trade Commission to investigate.
Whoever said Robert Reich is a short king is absolutely correct, by the way. He really is. Number one short king. He is a short king.
Oil companies. And he's appointed experienced antitrust lawyers to both the Federal Trade Commission and the Justice Department. So don't fall for Republicans' fear-mongering about inflation. The real culprit here is corporate power.
Antitrust legislation is historically useless. The next neoliberal will just reverse it. You can say that about anything under a bourgeois government, and that's not going to change anytime soon unless you have like an idea on how to fix the shortage of labor militancy that we have and labor organizing that we have in this country. But yes, you are correct. You are absolutely correct that our antitrust laws are to blame, or lack thereof rather, or the lack of application or lack of interest in application of antitrust laws are to blame here. But even if you were to change change that, which you can't because you're never going to be able to change that as long as they don't fucking push the cost back onto the consumers. They are kind of now, but in ways that is not as damaging or as devastating, then, you know, the American government's not going to do shit about it. What is this? UN Twitch chat? I love this meme. People, we have a hole in the floor. Are you an expert at shipbuilding? If there's a hole, then it's for a reason. Aren't you ashamed to say something like that about our ship? Everyone, let's mind our own business. I'm so proud of our boat. I like it with that hole even better. Guys, let's not be negative. I am not listening. I am eating here. I have a different point of view on the whole situation. Are you going to fix it? Sit down and be quiet, smartass. Oh my God, this is literally, oh my God, this is chat. This is Twitch chat. It's like giving me, oh, this is why I actually need therapy. Holy fuck. Technically, it's not a hole. It's a special port. Jonathan has 2 of those in his boat, and it's okay.